Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just not cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
Welcome back, tokers and tokettes and non-token lovers of liberty. Radical Russ here in Boulder City, Nevada. Just checking out my medical marijuana recommendation. My doctor says that my use of medical cannabis can help with my anxiety, stress, depression, and insomnia. So, yep, my doctor says it will work. So now I'm legal. Yay! I have a recommendation. It's been a long time coming, but now I've got it. Physician statement and recommendation for John Belville. That's me. Lucky me. I am a medical marijuana patient. You know what's kind of nice about this too is the medical marijuana patient name here, John Belville, doesn't have my social security number, doesn't have my birth date or anything. So I could use this, and I could give a copy to my dad, because my dad's name is John Belville too. So he could use it as well. Yeah, there you go. Medical marijuana, ladies and gentlemen. That's the system that we have gotten. And of course, going off on that last rant, we know why medical marijuana exists. Medical marijuana didn't exist because everybody wanted to help the sick people. Medical marijuana exists because we wanted to legalize marijuana, and we could only get the voters to support it for sick people. This is, this is one of the things that the other side says, our opponents say, and I'm probably the only guy that's going to tell you this in the marijuana movement, right? I'm one of the few guys that's going to come out and tell you when our opponents are right. I'm not afraid of that. As someone who's been involved in debate, you need to know your opponent's arguments. You need to know, it goes back to Sun Tzu, right? Know your enemy. And in our opponent's arguments, they often like to say that medical marijuana is a red herring. It's the camel's nose under the tent, because the people that want medical marijuana really just want to legalize marijuana. And in the early 90s, they recognized that they needed to rebrand marijuana away from being a hippie stoner drug into being a medicine for sick people. And then people couldn't resist voting for it. It would be kind of a nice tactic to get the law passed. And then once medical marijuana existed, people would get more and more comfortable with medical marijuana and more comfortable with marijuana in general, and then that would lead them to supporting legalization. Yep, absolutely right. And history has borne it out. All the states that have legalized so far started with medical marijuana. Now, the medical marijuana people don't want you to say that. Medical marijuana advocates hate it when you bring this up. They say, oh, it's the compassion. It's all about the compassion for the sick people. But follow up your question with, should a healthy person be arrested for marijuana? Should a non-medical marijuana patient be arrested for marijuana? You won't find these, well, maybe you will, But it's very rare that you're ever going to find a medical marijuana advocate who's in support of prohibition, who says that we ought to. No, well, we support getting the patients off the battlefield in the war on drugs. Oh, but do you want the war on drugs to continue? Well, no. Nobody should go to jail. Of course, we support legalization, but the first priority, first priority. So legalization is a priority. I maintain that it's impossible to support medical marijuana and not support the legalization of marijuana. Because what gives the greatest access to patients than the right for every human being to be able to use as they see fit?
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Ganjapreneur.com, your guide to the cannabis business world. Ganjapreneur.com is a comprehensive resource for cannabis professionals and entrepreneurs. Download the Ganjapreneur app on your smartphone or tablet to catch up on cannabis industry news, scroll through our daily job listings, and learn about successful cannabis companies, executives, and investors. Ganjapreneur.com, helping ganjapreneurs grow.
Next to THC and CBD, you can now add CBR to your cannabis vernacular. CBR as in CannabisRadio.com.
Hey everybody, it's Radical Russ here from 420 Radio, inviting you to be like me and get your ink done at Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo, Fort Worth's most female-friendly, clean, sterile, awesome tattoo shop. Thomas and his crew are true artists who can design you a custom piece or use a design you bring in. Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo also offers all styles of tattooing as well as piercings and all-around fun. In the DFW area, stop by Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Trust me, it'll feel awesome.
The Russ Belville Show, providing dictionaries to drug czars since 2009.
From high atop Mount Soledad in San Diego, California, 100 feet above sea level. Good morning. It's good news with cannabis nurse Heather.
This plant is amazing. Positive change is happening. We did it. No matter who you are, you can make a positive impact on the world.
I would rather be illegally alive than legally dead.
And that quote helped to give you strength.
Nurse Heather is only on CannabisRadio.com.
Good morning, cannabis nurse Heather.
Warning, hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they pay me to say that. This is Dan Michaels from DanMichaelsAudio.com, and you're listening to Radical Russ on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. It is just about 9 after the hour, and I am printing out my medical cannabis recommendation. That's right, folks. Mark this as the day, March 30th, 2016. Radical Russ officially became a medical marijuana patient. And, you know, for me, I'm going to put patient in quote marks, just like I put radical. I'm a patient, right? Yeah, I gotta. No, it's true, folks. I'm a medical marijuana patient because I went to a website and I told them that, like, I get depression, anxiety, and insomnia. And then that website, it made me do a Skype call with a doctor. The doctor said, "Oh, well, then you should use marijuana." So there you go. That's medicine. There we go. I'm legal. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. I'm looking at it. Here it is. You can hear it, right? I'm looking at the piece of paper right now. They got a 24-hour verification number. They got my patient number. It's good until March 30th of 2017. And my doctor says that the use of medical marijuana is appropriate. There we go. I've crossed the Rubicon, folks. I've become one of them. I'm a medical marijuana patient. Okay. Well, you know, I'm going to cop to this being a work requirement. It's a job requirement because I have to be able to report on dispensaries. And now I'll be able to. And this medical marijuana recommendation, I understand, will work for me in 6 states. And I think I can name them all: Nevada, Arizona, Delaware, Michigan, Rhode Island, Maine? I'm not sure. Let's find out. This is important information. We don't want to get this wrong. By the way, there's a great resource on the web if you've not used it before. It's called medicalmarijuana.procon.org. And they've got a great list. It's all the possession limits, all of their ballot questions, whether or not they have reciprocity. Let's see, residency requirements. Nope, all proof of residency. Patient registration. They used to have a list here for reciprocity. Accepts other patients' registry cards. Yes, Arizona, but you can't shop at a dispensary there. California does not, but my recommendations for California. Let's see, Colorado, but I'm legal in Colorado. Doesn't matter. No Connecticut, no DC, no Delaware. No on Hawaii. Darn it. No on Illinois. Maine. Yes. Yes for Maine. No for Maryland. Unknown for Massachusetts. They might. That's very good. Michigan accepts other states' medical marijuana cards. Minnesota does not. Montana does not anymore. They had they used to in Montana. They just passed a bill, SB 423. This really, just passed. It passed in 2011. That really cut back on their program. Yes, in Nevada. So again, that's the story we've been talking about. Yes, in New Hampshire. Okay, there we go. There's the state I did not realize is New Hampshire does now accept other states' medical marijuana cards. Let's go on. New Jersey, no. No surprise there. New Mexico, no. Oregon, no. So I won't even be legal in my home state. I would. That's great. All right. But I'm legal medical marijuana patient, I should say, since marijuana is legal in Oregon. Rhode Island. There's a catch for Rhode Island. Only for the conditions that are approved in Rhode Island. And none of my conditions are a Rhode Island condition, so I guess I have to cut Providence off my travel plans, right? No in Vermont and no in Washington State. So there you go. Again, this is all at medicalmarijuana.procon.org if you want to know which states are the medical marijuana reciprocity states. Now, in other news, got a big warning for our NFL players that are fans of the show. I know there's got to be a lot of them, right? The drug testing period begins April 20th. That's right. The NFL starts their substance abuse testing. This is their once a year annual test for substances of abuse. April 20th through August 9th. They actually tweeted this out from the NFLPA account. That's NFL Players Association. April 20th through August 9th is testing for substances of abuse, which we know means weed. Here it is. They tweet this out today. That's giving 21 days for the players to stop smoking weed. So once the test starts on April 20th, they can get away with it. They can pass their test. And once you have your test, you know that's the only test that you're going to have. There won't be a test for the rest of the year. So, if you're failing your once-a-year NFL drug test, you're either smoking a lot of weed and forgetting what the date of the test is and not stopping. Now, you know me. I don't think anybody should lose their job from a drug test. I don't think anybody should be punished for a drug test. Drug tests should be abolished, period. However, I do have to comment that when they make the joke that it's not a drug test, it's an intelligence test, that's what Marvin Washington told me, former defensive end for the Jets and the Broncos. He says it's really just an intelligence test because they only test you once a year and they tell you it's coming. And if you can't pass that, well, you're either smoking so much that you've got a baseline level that beats the test, or you got a cannabis dependence problem and you just can't stop. So who knows? But the testing should be banned anyway. But it's just funny to me that they test once a year. So you got to think these guys that are failing it, you could pass it. Let's just say that. All right, let me get to another story. This is great information coming out of the Brookings Institute. John Hudak's been a guest on the show, and he's the lead author on this new study. And I wanted to play you just a clip from John and his co-authors on what they call the medical marijuana mess.
At the time, it was just hell. You're a parent and you're just putting one foot in front of the other. It's like, this can't be the rest of her life. There's got to be something else.
She didn't understand why she had to go to another state to get medicine. Well, when we were in Colorado, emotionally it was very difficult, particularly for Jennifer being away from her father because he stayed here with my other daughter, couldn't quit his job, so we split up the family.
We almost just lost everything. We financed all kinds of stuff, trying to, set up 2 households. You're looking around and literally the dosing is all parents, and it's mainly tiger moms that are just tirelessly taking care of their kids. Just kind of, it's like, okay, my kid has this, and they're taking this, so how are you weaning down? It's like, I'm going to try that. Well, try dropping it, and literally that's how everybody is dosing. There's no doctors because they can't talk about it. And meanwhile, you're seeing your kid be able to wean off 75% with your own eyes and not have these side effects, and nope, we can't. Sorry, it's still illegal. We need more research, but we can't do research. And if you look at the last couple of years, parents just like us, hundreds, in most of the states in the country doing exactly what we did, trying to change your state law, and wondering why are you practically bankrupting yourself and all your spare time just trying to take care of your kid, being told, no, you can't do that. And, oh, by the way, you run the risk of having forfeiture and losing your house and all your money and your kid too.
That's the medical marijuana mess video profiling some of the families that are dealing with these states that have no medical marijuana. John Hudak's report, The Medical Marijuana Mess, A Prescription for Fixing a Broken Policy, is available at the Brookings Institute, brookings.edu. And Brookings basically says that it's just unconscionable for us to be allowing these people to suffer, and we need to immediately reschedule marijuana and deschedule CBD. Great report, and we will have John Hudak on as a guest for our show once again to discuss this, but he's been interviewing so many of these people that have had such devastating effects from this marijuana prohibition on their families, on their children, on their health, on their finances, on their possible freedom. And it's important for us, even if we are pointing out what a joke these medical marijuana programs can be, the joke side of it is this federal ban. The joke is marijuana being Schedule 1. And forcing us to come up with medical marijuana programs that, if we are trying to be compassionate, can't help but have loopholes. This thing that allows the people in Vegas to walk into a dispensary and sign an affidavit that they're a card holder in another state is what you would do to be compassionate. Somebody comes to Vegas from, Vermont, and they've got cancer and they've got a card in Vermont, but they didn't bring their card with them. What are you going to do? Turn them away? No, you let them sign a piece of paper that says they're okay to come in, and you get them their medical marijuana. Now, that loophole allows any old 20-something to walk in, too, and say the same thing. Well, okay. What's the alternative? Let the guy with cancer suffer? Let's just end the joke at its root.
Boot to the head.
Ow, you put me in the
Every now and then, somebody needs a boot to the head. Happy 420, everybody, from Boulder City, Nevada. I know the medical marijuana advocates are going to want my head on a pike for this, but this is what it's come to. This is what it's come to. All right, when we come back, we got international news. Stay tuned.
The smoke is rising, and the next crop of podcasts devoted to cannabis providers and enthusiasts are ready to be harvested. Welcome to the Cannabis Radio Network, founded by respected rainmakers who have been producing award-winning podcasts for over a decade. Industry headlines, business updates, medical reports, marketing, and e-commerce education rolled up perfectly for your consumption. Let's grow together. The Cannabis Radio Network. CannabisRadio.com.
Warning. Hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals, or at least they pay me to say that. A public service message from CannabisRadio.com and the Russ Belville Show. NORML stands for Responsible Adult Cannabis Use. If cannabis use is causing problems in your life, consider taking a break or seeking medical assistance. Consider ceasing cannabis use if you have a family history of mental illness. Don't drive or operate heavy machinery while impaired by cannabis use. Cannabis use is not without risks, even though the risks may be far less than those posed by legal drugs.
Keep your cannabis cravings under control. Feed your mind with CannabisRadio.com.
New beginner guitars and banjos are often constructed much better than ones built before your time. Why struggle? Get a new instrument or fix the old one. The trusted professionals at the Fingerboard Extension will evaluate your instrument for free. Repairs are priced for people who work for a living. Stop by the Fingerboard Extension downtown Corvallis at 120 Northwest 2nd Street today, or check out its inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com.
And Blue Blasten Gergen, Pfaffender Blasten, Schnurb Norben. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. 22 after the hour. Hope you had a good safety meeting. Taking a look at a headline on the Washington Post, how Vermont could change the marijuana legalization game. And it covers some of the same points that I've made discussing the issue of Vermont, and it's kind of this double-edged sword that we're going to have to deal with. And it's the problem of the unequal democracy we have throughout the United States. Simply put, about half the U.S. can control its own destiny through a vote of the people, and the other half cannot. And I'm talking about the power of voter initiatives. There's a great website for this, by the way, iandrinstitute.com. And you have to spell out and, so iandrinstitute.com. That's for initiative and referendum. And it talks about the power of the people. This website, tracks the power of the people to be able to institute law in their state. And there's different levels, right? That's what they mean by initiative and referendum. There's different levels. In some states, like Florida, the people can only initiate a constitutional amendment. That's all the power they have to do. That's why they went with that in Florida, even though an amendment in Florida requires a 60% threshold to pass, because it was their only option. They can't just make a statutory initiative. Oregon is a state that's got both. You can do constitutional amendment or statutory initiative. Some states, you can only petition for statutory initiative. Some states, you only have the power of referendum, which is to address a law already passed to either repeal it or amend it, right? Some only have initiated referendums, like you have to put the initiative forth to the legislature and then they have to put it on the ballot. And there's a lot of variations here. But for the purposes of this discussion, we'll just say there's some states that have initiatives and some states that don't, okay? Let's just keep it easy. There are more states that don't. I think it's like 26 that don't have this and 24 that do. And most of the states that have the initiative power are in the West. There's a couple in the Northeast. Maine and Massachusetts and Rhode Island has initiative as well. But most of them are concentrated in the Western United States, and that's why most of the early medical marijuana states were in the West, because the people had the power of the initiative. And that's also why, to some degree, the medical marijuana laws that passed early on are better laws than the ones that passed later on. That's why the first medical marijuana states from 1996 to 2010 have the right to home grow and access to whole plant medicine. It was in 2010 through 2016 that we've seen this second wave of medical marijuana where there's no longer a home grow right. And in some cases, Minnesota and New York, there's no access to whole plant. You have to just get tinctures and concentrates and oils and such, THC and CBD. And then the other states, the southern states that pass the CBD only laws, where you're not even really getting marijuana, you're just getting an extract of a constituent of marijuana, CBD. So we have this dichotomy, we have this divide of the good marijuana laws in places where there's initiatives and the bad marijuana laws. And really, marijuana laws are like sex and pizza, right? When they're good, they're great. And when they're bad, they're still pretty good. So we have these good marijuana laws, California, Oregon, Washington, Colorado. We can grow our own. We can get whole plant. Then you have the not so good marijuana laws where it's dispensary only and sometimes you can't get smokable marijuana. And that was an inevitable consequence of there being initiative states versus legislative states. Because the initiative states, the people can say, hey, we want a pony and put it on the ballot. And if enough people vote for it, great, it passes. But in the legislative states, you got these legislators who, on a good day, on an issue they're well briefed on, are idiots, right? And you're going to put before them marijuana, which they believe all sorts of reefer madness about. And I'll get to that in another story coming up. But so you got these legislators want to work on it. And then you also have the phenomenon of the early medical marijuana states, since they did get to pass the I want a pony laws in the early states, that led to people seeing this, like me, getting a medical marijuana recommendation via Skype. And that led these legislators to say, no, we're not going to be like that. We're going to make sure this is, locked down tight. So we got this divide between good medical marijuana and not so good medical marijuana. The Vermont question here being addressed in this Washington Post piece is that we're going to have the same thing when it comes to legalization. We're going to have the same sort of divide. You're going to have marijuana legalization out west, where people will have pot shops where they can get edibles and tinctures and salves and flour and concentrates, and where they're allowed to grow marijuana at home and possess a great deal of it in private. And then you're going to have the other legalization states, which will be in the Midwest or the East, where you can't grow your own plants at home. You can only possess a small amount of marijuana. Some of them you'll have to register. You'll have to get like a license, a marijuana license in a sense, to be able to just possess it. And it'll be a token gesture, right? Like anybody could get it. They'll probably even have these marijuana licenses available at online kiosks and, touch screens, and they'll just print out your little ticket. Like you get your little pass before you get on the metro train or whatever. Mark my words. That's what you're going to see. You're going to see wide open legal marijuana in the West, in the initiative states that pass their legalization through initiative, and then you're going to see the more strict legalization, the more restricted, no home grow type legalization, no edibles type legalization, because that's what they're talking about in Vermont here. The Governor Shumlin in Vermont is saying how great his medical marijuana law is because they're doing it deliberately through the legislature and taking care and learning from the mistakes of Colorado. We're not going to sell edibles in Vermont because we learned from that mistake in Colorado. We're not going to let people grow their own because that's a mistake, right? Shumlin loves this new law. So what's going to happen then is in the initiative states, we're going to keep passing reasonable laws like what we're looking at in 5 different states this year that are even going to have pot lounges in their laws. And then you're going to have these legislatures that craft these more restrictive type of legalizations. Just like medical marijuana has good and not so good, based on whether it's legislative or initiative. But here is where we got a catch. Here's where things get interesting. First time around on this marijuana issue, these guys got caught blindsided. California passed it, and it was a fluke, and hey, those crazy liberal Californians. And then Oregon and Alaska and Washington, hey, it's just a crazy West Coast thing. And then Hawaii and Nevada and Colorado and Montana say, whoa, wait a minute, this thing's getting out of control. And they didn't really get on their game till 2010 or 2012 and start saying, well, look, okay, so no, they can't grow plants at home. It'll be dispensary only. And hey, they can't smoke the shit. We got to give them an oil or something. It took them 15 years before they really got on their game. 14 years before they got on their game to figure out how to deal with these initiative states passing crazy medical marijuana laws. I don't think they'll be so slow on the uptick this time. I think this story about Shumlin, the governor in Vermont, is the template for what we're going to see for the rest of these initiatives or these some of these states. You're going to see these legislatures in the states where they have initiative power, because Vermont, they could pass marijuana through an initiative. You're going to see these states, or no, wait, do they? I don't think they do. I could be wrong on that. But there are, you're going to see some states that have initiative power where their legislatures are going to go, look, if we don't start by passing our type of legalization, the more restrictive kind, they're going to pass a wide open legalization through an initiative. It's the threat we made in Oregon. After our 2012 legalization failed, in 2013, we went to the legislature with the basic bones of Measure 91, and we said, look, we'll work with you in the legislature. Let's get this passed through the legislature. And they said, no. They said, look, work with us or we'll just put it on the ballot in 2014. And they're like, yeah, sure you will. And we did, and it passed, and now they scrambled to catch up and work with us. Could have got a lot of this stuff worked out, years ago, but okay. So that's a threat we already used. It's a threat they're going to see and appreciate in New Mexico, let's say. New Mexico's an initiative state. I can imagine New Mexican elected officials saying, look, let's pass a Vermont-style legalization in New Mexico before they put a California-style legalization on the ballot. Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, most of those interior western states have initiative power. Oklahoma has the initiative power. I could see them opting, look, we're never going to stop legalization. It's getting way too popular. So let's get ahead of this and put together a really crappy legalization. Because at least with the crappy legalization, they'll have pot shops and a lot of those stoners won't care anymore and they won't be able to pass anything better. I really think that's what we're going to see. I think there's going to be a quicker closing of the gap in the initiative states. And in the legislative states, I think they're going to see it won't be the threat of an initiative that threatens them. It's going to be the threat of losing out the money to these other states near them that legalize. And let's not forget the Native American tribes that have a hand in this as well. So even in a place like, say, Alabama, right, where you wouldn't expect them to want to pass a legalization thing through their legislature. But if they start having some tribes opening up some pot shops nearby or even within Alabama, if they get Georgia next to them legalizing medical marijuana, perhaps, if things start happening that way, then some of these state legislatures might say, look, we just have to bite the bullet on this. Legalization's inevitable. So we're going to do it our way, and we're going to make it as strict as we want. So this is another reason why I'm so in support of any legalization that hits the ballot. Any legalization that hits the ballot needs to pass. We need as many states in the good column as possible to balance out how far they're going to try to pull legal marijuana into the bad column in the future states. That's why I supported Ohio. What they proposed in Ohio in 2015, I guarantee you, is a better legalization than Ohio will get in the next 15 years. You won't see a better legalization in Ohio until the year 2030, at earliest. Oh well, sometimes it's hard being right, isn't it? We got to take a break because, But when we come back, we got our international stories from Israel, from New Zealand, and from Ireland. I'm Radical Russ, live in Boulder City, Nevada. Thanks for being here. We'll be right back in 2 minutes.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Great websites today need expert web design and development and need to be e-commerce ready and mobile friendly. But building a marketable and profitable website can be an uphill climb. Ready to make your new website or replace your existing website? Think Orange as the new way to get in the black. Orange Hill Development works with Fortune 500 companies and offer the same top quality development service at a fraction of what other providers charge. Brands like Absolute, Carlsberg, and Nestea trust Orange Hill Development. Find out why you should trust your website with Orange Hill. Contact Orange Hill for a consultation today at orangehilldevelopment.com.
From dabs to chivas, sativas to indicas, we roll out a whole concentrate of fresh new content every week. It's like going from the greenhouse to the dispensary. CannabisRadio.com.
The Russ Belville Show is proudly sponsored by the Marijuana Business Association. The MJBA, called by NBC News the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is the fastest growing business association in the fastest growing industry in America. I've been working with the MJBA for years, and I personally invite you to join the MJBA. MJBA also publishes the popular MJ Headline News on Facebook and the MJNewsNetwork.com and Marijuana Channel 1 on YouTube. Visit mjba.net for more details.
Marijuana is not addictive, but listening to the Russ Belville Show is.
Growing green to generate more green.
Hello to all you happy herbalizers, smiling trippy hippies, and everyone who believes in freedom and tolerance. This is The Grow Show, and I'm Kyle Cushman.
From food to fuel, from remedy to resource.
Welcome my guest, Ed Rosenthal, the guru of ganja. Let me ask you, right now I hear your lighter clicking. Are you smoking indoor or are you smoking sun-grown?
What am I smoking? I'm smoking concentrate.
Way to get out of the answer there. So you're truly like the king, right? You just clap your hands and somebody brings you a bowl and you're all set, right?
I wish that were the case.
The Grow Show with Kyle Cushman, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Hello, Mr. Man. Hi. I'm working. I'm sorry. No food till this is done. This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. 38 after the hour. As you know, in addition to doing this marijuana show stuff, I also have a tendency to write on political topics, and lately on my Huffington Post blog, I've been writing a whole lot on the Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders phenomenon, and I'm kind of getting labeled here for being a Bernie or bust supporter. And that's the point that if Hillary Clinton is nominated and goes up against Donald Trump, supposedly, or Cruz for that matter, that I won't vote for either one of those people because neither one of them are a person who, if you said to me, should this person be president of the United States? I would say no. So why? And of course, the point they try to make is that it's lesser of two evils is the basic point. That, yeah, Hillary Clinton may have some problems, but, she's not Donald Trump. Oh, my God, Donald Trump. Oh, geez. Oh, the hell. Oh, apocalypse, right? And this has been the line of thinking for every election I can remember. Really, it's been a line of thinking. I've never been counseled so much to vote for someone as to constantly guard against the evil that's coming from the other side. And I fell for this thinking the first couple of times because it seems logical. It seems logical that, okay, there are only two choices, A and B. And if A is better than B, I have to pick A. But here's the problem with that thinking, because you got to take it out of the short term and look at it in the long term. You got to look at what the cumulative effect of these things are. On the right, they have had a dedicated base of rabid activist types. Tea Partiers is the latest incarnation, but this goes back further. This goes back to John Birch Society and all of that, right? You've had, on the right, they have had a base that has pulled its party as far right as it can. Now, this has been aided by certain events, like Republicans gaining enough power to control state houses to rewrite congressional districts and legislative districts in such a way that you ensconce permanently a Republican seat, right? You get these weirdly drawn districts that only get the rich white people, and they go around all the minority suburbs and different places and working class neighborhoods, right? And you get a little tiny gerrymandered district that's guaranteed to be a Republican. So in that district, the only race that exists is the Republican primary, and the only guy that wins is the guy who's more Republican than the other guy. And that effect at that little level is to pull that district into being much more conservative than it really is. And then the net effect of all those little districts on the party is to pull that party further right than it really is. So, you've got this right wing, you've got these dedicated base activists in the right wing who at the micro level and the macro level have pulled their party rightward in ideology. On the other side, you've got a Democratic Party that has not been pulled by its base in any meaningful way in the last 30 years. Because that party, the Democrats, had been beat up so badly through the 70s, the Nixon years, the McGovern landslide loss, the Jimmy Carter malaise, getting crushed by Ronald Reagan, Mondale gets crushed, Dukakis gets crushed. All of that led up to Democrats having such a loathing of their own base, of their own identity, that they rejected that. When Bill Clinton came along, it was a rejection of the old Democratic ideals of welfare. Well, we're going to have welfare reform, tough on crime. They started taking items from the Republican agenda, right? And this was also in reaction to the Southern strategy of the Republicans. The Republicans had cast this Southern strategy of basically winning over what had been a largely Democratic working class white vote by appealing to racism through coded dog whistle type terminologies. Tough on crime. End welfare abuse. Ronald Reagan's Cadillac welfare queen, right? So the left wing had been so beat up over the 60s and 70s and the 80s that Bill Clinton comes along and figures, all right, here's how we defeat this Southern strategy. We get the white working class vote back by co-opting some of their stuff and not allowing the Republicans to paint us as welfare supporting and soft on crime and anti-gun and so forth. And we'll be tough on crime and more police on the streets and welfare reform and also being cast as the party that was anti-big business by supporting things like the merger of the telecommunications corporations and the ending of financial regulatory systems that had been in place since the Great Depression. So you've got a right wing that has been pulling its side to the right, and then you got a left, the Democratic Party, moving to the center to co-opt some of the fish in the right wing side. And Bill Clinton only pulled this off because, one, he is a politician without peer as far as his charisma and his political skill. And two, Ross Perot. He had a third-party candidate in there siphoning off some of the right-wing votes as well. Bill Clinton was elected with a plurality of 42% of the vote. 58% of America did not want Bill Clinton to be president. Remember that. Now, he did win a landslide re-election, but I think a lot of that was also aided by the fact that Bill Clinton was the beneficiary of the biggest economic engine in modern times, the dot-com boom and the evolution of computers and the internet. So by the 2000s, you've got a right-wing party being moved further to the right. You got a left-wing party that's moved itself to the middle, and the left-wing activists being left out in the wilderness and having really no political power, because what happens is by 2000, you get that argument of, well, you got to vote for the lesser of two evils. Yeah, Bill Clinton's moved to the center. Yeah, Democrats are more centrist. Yeah, they're more business friendly. Yeah, they abandoned labor. Yeah, they abandoned the poor. But what are you going to do? Vote for the gay-hating, misogynist Republicans that, are Bible thumpers and all that? So we got the lesser of two evils argument. And some of us were upset about it at that time. That's where the whole Ralph Nader thing started to happen, as we started, wait a minute, what's this? Lesser of two evils. How about we just have Democrats that act like Democrats? Wouldn't that be cool? So we got that in 2000. We got the same argument in 2004 when the Democrats run a lousy candidate in John Kerry. But lesser of two evils. We get it in 2000. Every year we get the same argument. Obama comes along in 2008 and actually talks like a Democrat and we start to recall, hey, yeah, we used to care about the poor. We used to care about, not being spied on and privacy and stuff like that. But then once he gets into office, he's co-opted into the same Democratic third way, corporate friendly ways. And again, has been pulled all the way to the right. In 2012, he runs, and even though he reneges on his promises of ending the war in Afghanistan or closing Guantanamo, and again, not all his fault. The Republicans completely obstructed him. I don't want to just forget about that part of it. But the broader point of this whole rant is that we got the lesser of two evils when we elected Bill Clinton. And what happened? Well, we got the telecommunications and the end of Glass-Steagall, and we got the mass incarceration and the crime bill and the welfare reform. We got the lesser of two evils when we got Barack Obama. What'd we get? Well, we got drone warfare and more spying and no accountability for torture and no accountability for wrecking Wall Street. And right? So, and that's not to say nothing good happened under Bill Clinton and nothing good happened under Barack Obama. But it wasn't all evil under George W. Bush either. And Bush was a terrible president, worst in my lifetime. So I'm not swayed by the lesser of two evils argument, because what I see is that the left needs to be pulled back to the left by its angry base. It worked for the Tea Party. Their angry base pulled their party to the right by running primary challengers and having absolute ideological purity and not accepting incumbents that didn't toe the line. So, yeah, part of the rebuttal against me is that that's what we should be doing, not at the presidential level, but we should be acting like the Tea Party and primarying people at the beginning and having the ideological purity tests at the city council level first before you start at the presidential level. But I think that you cement Hillary Clinton in there, you get Hillary Clinton in, and I think the problem just gets worse. The real problem, and that is the corporate takeover of our politics. I just don't see any way around it but holding them accountable. Why should she get my vote? Why should somebody who voted for the Iraq War, somebody who was fooled by George W. Bush, I think that's a pretty good litmus test. If George W. Bush can fool you, you can't be president. That's pretty simple. But for so much more, I don't know who I'm voting for if I vote for Hillary Clinton. She's changed her position so many times. She evolves so often. How do I know she doesn't evolve into something else that I don't want? Yeah. So anyway, I'm getting a lot of attention on that, and the latest guy out there tweeted back at me that let's see, what am I? I'm immature, a petulant child, ignorant, sore loser. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff I get for thinking what I think. Anyway, there's a great reply to this. I've posted it on my Facebook page, Radical Russ on Facebook, essay written by somebody else who points out that this argument we hear that the burning your bus thing is only possible for the beneficiaries of white privilege like myself. He does a really good job of shooting down that argument, so I'd encourage you to check that out if it's something of interest to you. Now, coming up, don't forget, in 10 minutes, we've got the Stoner Jesus Show coming up live here on CannabisRadio.com. And you will enjoy it, but make sure you might want to put headphones on. You never know what Stoner Jesus is going to say. And if you're listening at work, it could be difficult. Also, coming up at 6 o'clock, we got the newest edition of the Tommy Chong podcast, heard exclusively here on CannabisRadio.com. Want you to check all that out. We're going to take a break, be back to close up the show, and I promise I'll give you that international news headlines. I've been teasing it for the past half hour. We'll come back and tell you what's going on in Israel, in New Zealand, and Ireland when we return.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
CannabisRadio.com keeps you in the know Monday through Friday on air and on demand with Cannabis Radio News, presented with the definitive worldwide news source, the Associated Press. Stay informed with exclusive news on all things cannabis. Cannabis Radio News, live weeknights at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, during the Russ Belville Show, or download the daily podcast exclusively on CannabisRadio.com, as well as iTunes, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. When breaking news happens in the cannabis industry, Cannabis Radio News delivers the details first.
The Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com. The National Wildlife Refuge for Marijuana Unicorn.
NORMAL stands for Responsible Adult Cannabis Use. If cannabis use is causing problems in your life, consider taking a break or seeking medical assistance. Consider ceasing cannabis use if you have a family history of mental illness. Don't drive or operate heavy machinery while impaired by cannabis use. Cannabis use is not without risks, even though the risks are far less than those posed by legal drugs.
Legal to listen to all over the world. We're just not sure about France. CannabisRadio.com.
New beginner guitars and banjos are often constructed much better than ones built before your time. Why struggle? Get a new instrument or fix the old one. The trusted professionals at the Fingerboard Extension will evaluate your instrument for free. Repairs are priced for people who work for a living. Stop by the Fingerboard Extension downtown Corvallis at 120 Northwest 2nd Street today, or check out its inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com.
I have a package here for Radical Rick. Is there a Radical Rick here? How about a Rick Russ? Any Rick Russ? Somebody named Freddie Barack has sent him a package. Anybody? What is that? Sounds like a skunk. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation, only on CannabisRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Quick notes on our international news feed. Israeli cannabis expertise attracts U.S. firms. This from, I'm not sure how to say it, Haaretz? the Israeli news service. But U.S. firms have invested $50 million in licensing Israeli medical marijuana patents, cannabis agro-tech startups, and firms developing delivery services such as inhalers. This is according to Saul Kay, the CEO of ICANN, a private cannabis research hub. He says he expects it to grow to $100 million in investment in the coming year at the Canatech conference in Tel Aviv. The U.S. legal market is currently at $5.7 billion, expected to be $23 billion by 2020. And one of the points they say about that makes Israel so attractive is that it's easier to research there. According to Dr. Sue Sisley, she says, in the United States, it's easier to study heroin than marijuana. With marijuana, you have to go through added layers of government red tape. It highlights the way marijuana research is being shackled by politics. Isn't that amazing, folks? It is harder to study marijuana than heroin, and they're both Schedule I drugs. So, like, marijuana is like a Schedule I plus, right? It is an extra boost. When you need that extra boost of prohibition, go for Schedule I plus. We've got another story from the International Wire coming from New Zealand, from Radio New Zealand, on the possibility of cannabis decriminalization in New Zealand, which is going through a major drought right now as far as marijuana availability. But the National Party our National Party's health minister says he's not in favor in decriminalization and says, quote, "We have got too many drugs in society. Cannabis is very carcinogenic. I don't think it would be a good idea to have more people smoking more cannabis." End quote. Carcinogenic. Please, Mr. Minister, please show us the cancer wards filled with marijuana smokers. We'll wait. Go look. You're not going to find them. Marijuana use is not carcinogenic. There are carcinogens in it. That does not necessarily make it a carcinogen. Chemistry matters. Hydrogen is explosive, but when it's mixed with oxygen, it's water. Okay? Chemistry matters, okay? The largest long-term study on marijuana smokers by Dr. Donald Tashkin found no increased risk of cancer from marijuana smoke. And in our final international news piece from Ireland, mother of Cork boy receiving U.S. cannabis treatment says, quote, "It's illogical not to have it in Ireland," end quote. I first read this headline and I thought, mother of Cork boy, what, Pinocchio's got a brother? That's my Ireland joke. Folks, that's all the time we got for today. Thanks for joining us here on CannabisRadio.com. Stay tuned because Stoner Jesus is coming up next. He will take you straight to stoner heaven and save your stony soul. From what? I don't know. For everyone here at CannabisRadio.com, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.